Welcome to the Casting Across Fly Fishing Podcast. I'm Matthew of castingacross.com, where I explore the quarry and culture of fly fishing. You have found your way to episode 310 of the Casting Across Fly Fishing Podcast. 310 episodes. And today's features you. Well, at least a few of you, because this is another edition of the Accusations, fly fishing questions, comments, and accusations. And this one, right off the bat, is a mea culpa. The very beginning, it's my apologies. And it's my apologies for being ignorant of the fact that people leave comments on Spotify. I don't use Spotify. I stream my podcasts on Apple Podcasts, that happy little purple icon that I've had for a long time on my iPhone. And I listen to music on Amazon Music. So I don't know what that makes me as far as like being old or out of touch or whatever, but those are the two apps that I use. Amazon Music for streaming music and Apple Podcasts for streaming podcasts. They used to be iTunes, I think. Anyway, Spotify's out there, and Spotify is probably the biggest thing, if you know what I see online and what I hear is any indication. But apparently, not apparently, it's real. You can leave podcasts. You could probably leave podcasts. That's how I do it. You can leave comments on podcast episodes on Spotify, and it wasn't until I got an email this week. I'm talking 300 plus episodes, right? I got an email this week saying, "Hey, you've got all these unreviewed comments on your podcast episodes over at Spotify." So I hopped in and I gave each and every one of them a quick little heart. But I figured, even though there's some of them that are old, I want to acknowledge that I'm now aware that there are comments over on Spotify, and I want to respond to one. So the first one is in response to a podcast from 8 months ago called How to Read Big Rivers. How to Read Big Rivers. And this podcast episode, I'd say it's worth going back and listening to. I've gotten quite a bit of feedback about it in one way or another. And the basis for it was a lot of us start fly fishing on small rivers. And small could be a little tiny creek in the mountains. It could be a little spring creek. It could even just be the meandering freestone through our town. And then we show up to a really big river. So in my life, the first big river I fished was the White River in Arkansas. I mean, this thing, the little side channels were bigger than the creeks I fished back in Virginia. Or the first time I went out to the Youghiogheny out in Western Maryland, and just thinking, this is too much water. I have no clue what to do. Those two rivers in particular stick out in my mind as just kind of shaking me to the core as far as how do I find fish, and once I find them, how do I approach them? And so what I did in this podcast was I really broke it down into chunks, and that's one of my favorite ways to consider large rivers. So I'd say go listen to that podcast to get more information. But this is what Benja, not sure if the real name, probably is, said. He said, "Great episode so far, but it would help a lot if in some episodes like this one, you add video to the podcast. That would help a lot to understand the principles." Well, first and foremost, I agree 100%. And I would love to do that. I think that would be fantastic. And I'm not opposed to doing that in the future. Right now, again, this podcast, its format is what it is, 20-ish minutes. Like, I wish I could do a lot of content on knots. I wish I could do a lot of content on angles. I wish I could do a lot of content on casting. And I have a lot that I've used in my teaching, a lot that I've written about it. But in the written word, outside of photographs accompanying it, and in the spoken word, outside of, as you suggested, video, they become a little bit abstract and obscure. And so I do try to shy away from them. But this is a great example, how to read big rivers, and how to think about them, and how to break them up into component parts. And that's definitely something that I would like to continue to build on, because I think it has been very, very helpful to me, and I assume that it's probably helpful to a lot of other people who are in a very similar situation. But here's a little bit of a sneak peek on something happening in the near future for Casting Across. How much should I divulge? So there's actually a couple of ways in which stuff like this is going to be available through Casting Across. But the one that I'm confident in that will happen, that I don't mind mentioning, is I have some presentations coming up. So if you live in the Northeast, stay tuned, because I am being booked for a few different in-person speaking engagement at some fly fishing events and activities in the next few months. And when I do that, I will do my best to have some PowerPoint style presentations, slideshows, they called them when I was a kid, and have that up there so I can walk through these things and break them down piece by piece with something that we can look at and kind of ingest together. So, Benja, I appreciate the comment and the feedback, and yes, I do wish that I had more visuals that I could share, but since this is what it is, and since I have a lot of other things going on besides casting across, I'm not sure how many big videos I'm going to be producing in the near future. But like I said, I do what I can with the words, and I will be sharing some things in person in the coming months. So stay tuned for that. All right, the next feedback comes from Quinn. I think I've responded to Quinn before, but you know what? If you write good emails and you ask good questions, then you're going to get it on the podcast. So he says, Matthew, I enjoyed your podcast on gear gimmicks. All right, so let me slide in here real quick. So I talked about some things that aren't necessary and some things that seem like they're gimmicky, but they actually are beneficial. And to be honest with you, I didn't look back. I can't remember. Zippers on waders was one of them that I thought is not gimmicky at all. And fancy fly line is another one that I said is not gimmicky at all. I can't remember some of the things I criticized, but I know I did criticize some, so go listen to that podcast. But Quinn says, I enjoyed your podcast on gear gimmicks. I have a quick question for you regarding another possible gear gimmick. You have talked a lot about sunglasses in different posts and podcasts. Guilty, I have. My question is on your opinion, do you really have to spend sometimes $100 plus on a pair? Throughout my 20 years of fishing, I've always spent $50 on a pair, and I've never ever tried a pair of Smiths, Oakley, or Costas on. Could those also be possibly gimmicks? And then he has a second comment, which I'll get to in a second. So let me, and I answered Quinn. Let me actually read what I answered him. And I said, to each his own, but I think that glass lenses are far superior to plastic. With that said, my choice on sunglasses are limited to the high-end brands. Is the difference worth it to everyone? No. Personally, I won't go back. I even run in glass lenses now. That said, there are gimmicks within brands that allow them to tack $100 on an already great pair of lenses. So my take on this is you really have to decide where you want to spend your money. From fishing in a number of pairs of different brands of sunglasses over the years, some high-end brands and some budget brands, and some high-end brands that sell their glasses to stores, and then the stores throw their label on it from, knowing a couple of folks in the industry, I'm aware of that. And I've fished all of those. So, as cheap as like $25 and $50, even though they're like $150, $200 sunglasses, but they're plastic lenses. I love my glass lenses, and I fish and I run and I hunt and I hike and I drive in Costa del Mar. I have not worn some of the other brands that have glass lenses, but those are the ones I have worn, and I can't imagine it getting any better than that. So if you want to send me a pair and prove me wrong, by all means. But I do see, literally, and notice as well, a significant difference between plastic lenses and glass lenses, both in clarity and in durability. I have had some real high-end plastic lenses in sunglasses, and they've scratched up super quick. Good customer service from the company, but they're only going to take returns so many times, right? Whereas I have not had that with glass. So in all of my pair of glass lenses, which I've been fishing in for well over 10 years now, I've only scratched one pair. Dropped them, run into stuff, hit them with flies, the whole 9 yards. I've only legitimately scratched one pair, and it is in the unfortunate placement of like right in front of my eyeball. And so I notice it, but at the same time, it's nothing compared to some of the glasses that I own that have plastic lenses. So again, you have to judge what fits your budget, what you want out of a pair of sunglasses, and how you prioritize your spending. So if you would rather spend $100 more on a nice pair of wading boots because you've got bad ankles, or $100 more on a better fly rod because you just want that fly rod, or $100 more on whatever, $100 more to go fly fishing in another state by buying another license, whatever, and that's fine. But I do want to give that information to folks that I genuinely believe that if you have that a little bit of disposable income to throw at some gear, that this is one of the places I think is worth it. But I did acknowledge that there are gimmicks. There's some things that is just I'm not a huge fan of, and some of the companies. I don't know if it is worth them, like I said, adding more money on top of an already quality product. And at that point, I would say, yeah, there's some gimmicky stuff, and you'll see because that technology or those features or whatever, it won't persist. It'll come out, it'll get a lot of fanfare, and then it'll go away. And it's worth trying it out and checking it out, but it might not have the longevity that that the core of the product, like sunglasses, has to offer. Now I'll sneak this one because it's also like administrative detail. So like with the previous comment about the videos, how I talked a little bit about what I'm doing in the future. Uh, Similar thing here. He writes, also on your website, I was looking for different topics I know you have written on or talked about on your podcast. Just a suggestion, if you could add a search function where people could type in a subject in the search bar, all the information you have on that subject would pop up. That'd be fantastic. Anyway, thanks for all you do and keep the good work. So Quinn, great point. And I do have a search bar on the desktop. It's on the right, kind of below all of like my static information. So some of those posts and information that's on the right, it's on there. On a what's it called, a tablet or a phone, you do have to scroll like past a whole bunch of junk. Very inconvenient, very cumbersome. So yes, it's there. Not easy to find, especially if you're on a mobile device or a tablet. But if you do put that in, then stuff will pop up. It doesn't have AI features. It's going off of keywords, so it's not going to be super comprehensive. But one thing that I would say to use is there's keywords at the bottom of every article. So if you go to an article and you're reading about like brook trout, then there's a very good chance that I keyed in the keyword brook trout down there. So you click on that, it'll give you a list of everything I've keyworded as brook trout. Also not going to be comprehensive, but that does give you two options. You can click on the keywords in the bottom of the articles and posts, and they'll take you to both posts and to podcasts, or you can put something in the search bar, which will be comprehensive, but it won't have some of the modern googly features that you have come to know and love. That said, not on the podcast, not on the website, but if you do go to Google and you put casting across spinning rod, casting across duck hunting, casting across sunglasses, casting whatever, I will probably pop up first with that. I would hope I would. So, but thank you, Quinn, for trying to help make the website more user friendly. Today's last bit of feedback is a question from Jeff, and Jeff writes, "Thank you as always for your podcast and articles. I wish I had found casting across years ago. I wish I'd started casting across years before I did. Anyway, I was hoping you could advise me on the purchase of my first vise. I read your article on upgrading fly tying tools and would rather make one good purchase now than several compromised purchases. I don't need a top-of-the-line vise, but I don't want to skimp and miss out on features that would make tying easier for a novice. Any advice on features or models that I should consider would be greatly appreciated. God bless, Jeff." Well, this one is a bit of a makeup because as I was reading it, I realized I never responded to this email. I try to do my best, but every once in a while, because I'm getting lots and lots of emails from my other email accounts, I miss one. So, Jeff, here is your answer, and I apologize, it's like a month and a half late. So for years and years, I would give the same standard answer for best introductory vice, and it was the Wolf Indiana Apex Vice, and it used to come in at just over like $100, maybe $150. Now it is up to $228, which I think is still a good price for what it is. It is a well-made, well-machined fly tying vise that you can use for midges all the way up to saltwater flies. It is just a very ergonomic, solidly built, easy to use fly tying vise. The price going up, I don't know if it's necessarily is going to be my go-to example for folks who are looking for an introductory vise anymore, because there's a lot of good fly tying vices, great fly tying vices in that $200 to $250 range. So I don't have the full story. Actually, as I was kind of getting ready to respond to this, I got online and started looking at this. Now it looks like they're under the name Rambler, Angler, and Blade. So I'm learning about this online just like you would be if you're Googling it. But love the vise. I've been using it for years and years. I think it's a great vise, but it is a little bit more expensive now. So the other vise that I like, which is still, it's $100, under $100 actually, and you can get a lot of places. I mean, Orvis sells it. So if you get a coupon from Orvis, you can probably get it for cheap. But it is a Griffin Enterprises Montana Pro Vice. And this is a lever operated vise with very unobtrusive jaws. So once again, small flies up to larger flies. Comes with a clamp, and it's very adjustable. But it is, again, all metal components. For a fly tying vise, that has to be standard. Once plastic gets in, the amount of pressure that is needed to put a small hook or a large hook in those jaws to maintain pressure, and then for you to crank down with some tying techniques, it has to be all metal. This is a good little vise, and for under $100, I would choose this vise and then go buy materials elsewhere or from the same shop, but out of this package, as opposed to buying a kit that includes a substandard vise and the whole kit costs $100, if that makes sense. So that I have to have maybe a new perspective on what my beginner vice recommendation is, but the Griffin Enterprises Montana Pro Vice is a really good vice for the price. You can always take a gamble on Amazon with some of these things that are being made overseas that have like 4 or 5 different names depending on where you buy them from. Some of them are going to be legitimately good vices, but with a fly tying vice, you really want everything to be precise, especially if you are tying small flies and you want those jaws to be able to clamp down well. If there is a machining issue on the materials, if there is a consistency issue on the surface of those jaws, or if there's plastic or something's not lining up, then you're not going to be able to hold those small flies. I've used cheaper vices when I've been out and about, or even that I've owned in the past, where they struggle with like 18s, and that's not good. Even if you're not going to be tying 24s, you want an 18 to not move, because as you use it over and over and over again, that margin is going to now slip down into something like a 16, and that's just unnecessary. But then also on the other side of it, you want them to be consistent and have that closing power with whatever mechanism that it utilizes, so that you can hold that saltwater hook or that bass popper and really apply the pressure needed to get that fly to do what you want it to do. So that is my suggestion. Again, I would say that Apex Vice is awesome, a little bit more expensive than it used to be, and then the Griffin Montana is another good vice as well. Well, there you have it. 3 interesting pieces of feedback. Hopefully you found them interesting. Like I say, even if I don't respond to you on the podcast, I'll get back to you on the computer. But man, I guess Jeff's email just proves that sometimes that doesn't happen right away, does it? But that said, don't hesitate to reach out if you have questions, if you have comments, if you have accusations, then certainly let me know. Matthew at castingacross.com, Matthew at castingacross.com, or you could reach out apparently on Spotify now. That's the thing. This week on castingacross.com, first article. All right, super pumped about this one. I've been waiting a while to put this one out, but now I have, and I love it. Talking about sunglasses. And the article is called Back to Costa's Grand Catalina for the First Time. So the Grand Catalina is a plastic-rimmed aviator-style sunglass, and they just look so cool. I'm not sure my wife loves that I wear them, but I just think they look so cool. And I know you shouldn't get a pair of sunglasses because they look cool, but they look cool. They remind me of like Bill Dance's sunglasses, but these are the ones that the guys would wear on the fly fishing shows back in the 90s. Flip Pallet is probably the figure that you would probably associate with him the most. And Costa did a really cool promo with Flip and Walker's Cave footage that is also juxtaposed with him fishing now. And so I would say check that out. I have a link to that on this article. But it's not about looking cool only. It's not about nostalgia only. These are genuine performance sunglasses. And the reason why is they provide all the coverage you need. They're not as flat as some of the other aviator glasses. They provide a little bit more coverage, so you get a little bit of that side shielding naturally, but then they also come with clip-on rubber side shields. So if you really want to hone in, then it's awesome. You get that that glare reduction from the polarization, but then also you have a large lens that shields your entire eye, and the side shields also provide more shielding to keep that glare out also, and the reflection that also comes with it. So I think they're fantastic sunglasses. Again, if you are somebody who's in the mood for something or that you want to add a new pair, check these out. Also, if you've not seen Costa's gold lenses, which are new for this year, I guess. Yeah. This is a great way to hop into them. There's tortoiseshell frames, let me think, black, olive, and then white if you're feeling pretty frisky. But then they also come in every one of their colors of lenses as well. So definitely check those out. Check that article out. And you can see a picture of me wearing them in the woods. Wednesday's article was called The Phonesthetic Fly. The Phonesthetic Fly. What does it mean when something is phonesthetic, or what are phonesthetics? Well, it has to do with words that sound good. Words that sound good. Probably the most famous example, and I cite it in the article, is cellar door. Cellar door. J.R.R. Tolkien writes about this phrase a lot. A number of other, H.L. Mencken, some other profound C.S. Lewis authors wrote about why this sounds so nice, both in the sound of it and what it represents. So that's phonesthetics, words that sound good. I mean, marketing companies, probably even fly fishing marketing, they take this into account when they name things. So I have a fly that I think is the perfect phonesthetic fly, and that is October caddis. October caddis. October caddis. Say it with me. October caddis. So in this article, I explain why I think that is the perfect sounding fly, and then I share a little bit of an anecdote about the October caddis. All right, this week's recommendation is, I think I've mentioned this before as recommendations, but I'm going to say it again. Go to Costco. If you're not a member of Costco, then this is worth going along with somebody or getting your own membership. So I think there's probably an article coming out in the near future about this in kind of broader strokes. But you can always find some good fly fishing stuff at Costco. Now, you actually can find every once in a while, like a rod and reel. They'll have a little combo. But my recommendation this week is that they have branded with Orvis branding and Eddie Bauer branding, both I think right now, insulated nylon pants. These are perfect underwater pants. Perfect. And they cost like $15. Are the components as nice as the $100 version that you're going to get at the fly shop? Probably not. But are they going to do way better than the sweatpants you have been wearing? It's certainly better than jeans. Oh, heavens. Don't wear jeans under your waders. But yes, these are great $15 options to throw under your waders in cooler weather. So like I said, you go to Costco. I've seen them in the last week, both with Eddie Bauer branding and with Orvis branding, and I think they're like the same pants. And I'll talk more about that in the future. Like is it really Orvis stuff? Yes and no. But definitely check that out. So I will put a link to their listing over at the Costco website if I can find it, because the website turns things over quite quickly. But if you are a member, go check that out and grab yourself a pair for throwing under your waders as the weather gets cooler. Thanks for listening to the Casting Across Fly Fishing podcast. Please subscribe to your favorite podcast app and rate the podcast in iTunes. Then head over to castingacross.com for 3 posts a week on the people, places, and things that go into the pursuit of fish.